Just 3 minutes ago, an unexpected voice broke the royal silence, Prince Harry himself. In a rare, emotionally charged message from Montecito, he confirmed what many feared but few dared to say aloud. Princess Eugenie, his trusted ally, is no longer under the protection of royal security. But why now? And who made this devastating decision? This is more than just a headline, it's a royal rupture with dangerous implications. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The news dropped like a thunderclap. Within seconds of Harry's message surfacing online, shockwaves pulsed through palace corridors and digital spheres alike. For months, whispers swirled about shifting allegiances and silent punishments. But no one imagined this, that Eugenie, the quiet, composed, ever-loyal royal, would be stripped of the very protection that had shielded her since birth. Harry, known for his rare but pointed interventions, didn't mince words. His voice, trembling but defiant, named what the monarchy refused to admit. Eugenie had been left exposed, and it wasn't by accident. It was deliberate. A decision buried within the pages of a confidential internal review had effectively erased her from the roster of royals deemed worthy of protection. Sources close to Montecito revealed that Harry had fought relentlessly behind the scenes to prevent this move. He'd made late-night calls, triggered legal consultations, and even proposed alternative solutions only to be stonewalled at every turn. What cut deepest wasn't the security downgrade itself, but the message it sent, that Eugenie, the one who dared to stand by him, was now being punished for her loyalty. And while the monarchy's inner circle remained tight-lipped, their silence spoke volumes. Because for those who know how the palace works, silence is the deadliest language of all. Eugenie, often considered the royal family's neutral ground, had become something far more dangerous, a bridge, a link between Harry and the institution he left behind. And now, with her protection revoked, that bridge had been burned by those who once celebrated her discretion. Within minutes, damage control began. Aides scrambled to spin the story as a budgetary measure, an administrative realignment. But no one was buying it. Not when the royal family still funded lavish security for distant cousins and ceremonial figureheads. Not when the one royal who dared to show compassion across enemy lines was left to fend for herself. Inside the palace, panic set in. Staffers exchanged frantic calls, senior aides were summoned, and a sudden tightening of internal communications suggested something far more sinister than a misstep. It hinted at strategy. Online, hashtags exploded, opinion pieces rolled out within hours, and public fury gained traction at an alarming rate. The narrative had shifted. This wasn't just about security, it was about betrayal. About silencing one of the last moderating voices in a royal war growing colder by the day. But to understand the scale of this betrayal, we must rewind the clock to a time when Eugenie stood not as a liability, but as Harry's last line of royal hope. While the world saw headlines of division behind closed doors, Princess Eugenie remained a silent force of unity. One of the few royals to visit Harry in California and openly communicate with Meghan, Eugenie defied protocol to preserve a fragile bond. But that loyalty came at a cost, one that may now be unraveling. Long before the royal crisis shattered public trust, long before the tabloid wars and televised interviews, there was a quiet friendship between cousins that refused to break. Eugenie and Harry shared more than blood, they shared exile, in different forms. His was physical, hers emotional. As Harry stepped away from royal duties and crossed an ocean, Eugenie remained in London, walking the tightrope between royal loyalty and personal truth. It wasn't Meghan who first breached the icy silence from Windsor, it was Eugenie. Her visit to Montecito, though buried beneath media noise, shook the palace core. And it wasn't just a social call. It was, by all accounts, a gesture of defiance, a reaffirmation that family, when stripped of power, still mattered. But the palace doesn't forgive easily. Whispered reports from senior aides began surfacing in late 2023, suggesting Eugenie's communications with Harry were inappropriate for a working royal. Though no official reprimand followed, the murmurs were enough. Courtiers began labeling her a divided voice, a term reserved for those whose presence unnerved the system. Her decision to engage with Montecito in private, without palace approval, was quietly flagged as a breach of internal expectations. She became a name on lists that were never supposed to exist, those who might one day step too far. Inside security briefings, her name began appearing with quiet caution. Soft risk, they called it. Not because she posed danger, but because she blurred lines. She knew too much, spoke too little, and aligned herself intentionally or not with the royal family's most controversial exile. According to one source, a 2024 internal document quietly shifted Eugenie's designation from protected active royal to non-essential asset, a term steeped in cold detachment. It wasn't a demotion, it was an erasure, masked in bureaucracy. And no one informed her. Behind the scenes, Meghan reportedly expressed deep gratitude for Eugenie's grace. Unlike others in the firm, Eugenie never questioned her pain or denied her story. That empathy, rare and dangerous within palace walls, became her signature trait and her biggest liability. In quiet conversations, Meghan referred to her as the last kind heart in a cold machine. But kindness has a price, and in Eugenie's case, it may have marked the beginning of her isolatio. Anne. As she continued to bridge Harry's world with the institution he left behind, her position became increasingly untenable. The very bond she nurtured, built on compassion, not strategy, was seen as a crack in the monarchy's armor. And as pressure mounted from within, those cracks began to widen. The once celebrated princess, praised for staying above conflict, was now seen as unpredictable. Dangerous not because of what she said, but because of who she stood beside when others turned away. As Eugenie's loyalty deepened, so did the unease within palace walls, and soon whispers of retribution began to swirl in corridors cloaked in tradition. In a closed-door emergency session held at Clarence House, select senior royals and advisors convened without fanfare. The topic? A quiet reshuffle of protection priorities, but sources confirm that one name stood out: Eugenie. By the end of that meeting, her fate was sealed, and not even Prince Andrew was consulted. The meeting was never supposed to make headlines. No photographs, no announcements, just a quiet assembly of the monarchy's innermost circle. On paper, it was framed as a standard budgetary discussion, a routine recalibration of resources in response to mounting costs and shifting threats. But behind the euphemisms and formalities, something far more calculated was unfolding. A leaked itinerary from that day's agenda revealed a category labeled non-critical royal allocations, and nestled among obscure entries was one unmissed. Cable name: Princess Eugenie. Those in the room knew exactly what that meant. She wasn't under review, she was being erased. Princess Anne, long seen as the stoic spine of the firm, reportedly raised an objection. Her words, according to one insider, were brief but firm: "She's done nothing wrong." But her concern was overruled. The momentum had already tilted. Prince William, citing a need for a streamlined and risk-aligned framework, endorsed the new model. On its surface, the move appeared administrative, but the inclusion of a vague clause titled External Affiliations and Reputational Proximity cast a long, ominous shadow. That clause, according to palace watchers, was a veiled reference to Montecito specifically, Eugenie's continued relationship with Harry and Meghan. From there, the decision moved swiftly. No debate, no counter-argument. Within hours, Eugenie's security was officially downgraded from Category B, reserved for working royals with moderate public exposure, to unclassified civilian status. The shift wasn't just symbolic. It meant no routine protective coverage, no close-range surveillance, and no immediate response protocol in emergencies. It meant vulnerability, exposure, risk, and all of it, buried under layers of bureaucracy so cold it might as well have been a spreadsheet line item. King Charles, by most accounts, didn't push for the decision, but he didn't stop it either. One aide described his expression as reluctant but resigned when presented with the final draft. The signature came quickly, perhaps too quickly for someone who once referred to Eugenie as a gentle anchor in turbulent waters. Some believe he saw the move as necessary collateral to preserve palace unity. Others say he simply bowed to pressure, unwilling to ignite another internal war when the monarchy could barely handle the last one. And just like that, Without warning, Eugenie was quietly stripped of the very shield that had protected her for decades. There were no statements, no briefings, only silence. But in that silence, a message echoed loud and clear: loyalty has limits, and crossing invisible lines, no matter how well-intentioned, can come with consequences no one dares to explain. What followed wasn't just administrative, it was deeply personal. Because within days, Eugenie's life would be thrown into chaos. It was just after 2 a.m. when a black SUV loitered outside Eugenie's home. No royal guards, no official response. For the first time since birth, a royal bloodline was left unprotected. And according to insider reports, Eugenie awoke not to protocol but to fear. The shadows had been inching closer for days. It began subtly: an unfamiliar car parked too long near the property, a man seen twice in different parts of the neighborhood, the sensation of being followed without proof. At first, she brushed it off, a coincidence perhaps. But then came the confirmation. Unmarked vehicles were trailing her movements, supermarkets, her son's school route, even the chapel she attended in quiet mornings. None of it was safe from watchful, unknown eyes. Instinct kicked in. She reached for the protection she had always known. Except this time, it wasn't there. When Eugenie contacted her private security contact, an old friend from a firm that once liaised with royal protection, they gave her a chilling reply. They had no authorization, no directive, no grounds to intervene. Without a clearance order from the palace, their hands were tied. Hours later, a soft code yellow alert, essentially a low-tier threat assessment, was logged internally by a junior staffer, but it was never escalated. No alarms, no dispatch. According to sources, it was marked as non-critical. In other words, she was on her own. Inside the palace, reactions varied. One aide claimed the concern was dramatically overstated, pointing to no confirmed threats. But those close to Eugenie knew this wasn't about public threat levels, it was about private abandonment. A silent message had been delivered in the most dangerous way possible. And when the moment of confrontation came, it didn't involve titles or security clearances, it came through Jack. Her husband, her anchor, confronted a security liaison parked near their residence. His words were pointed, his demand clear: "Is my wife being watched or protected?" The reply was cold and concise: "Not our jurisdiction." The weight of that moment wasn't just about fear, it was about realization. For the first time in her life, Eugenie wasn't a protected royal. She was a vulnerable target with a title that meant nothing in the eyes of those who once swore to defend her. An insider would later say, that night, she stopped feeling royal. She felt disposable, not because of the absence of guards, but because of the presence of silence. The institution that had built her world had now left her to navigate it alone, without explanation or apology. In the stillness of that night, under the pressure of fear and betrayal, Eugenie didn't turn to her father. She didn't ring the crown. She picked up her phone and did the unthinkable, reached out across the Atlantic, to the only royal who still listened. As fear set in and blinds of trust were shattered, Eugenie did the unthinkable. She reached out, not to her father or the crown, but to the only royal who still listened. In a flurry of encrypted calls and frantic messages, Prince Harry re-entered the fray not as a duke, but as a brother in arms. Fighting from across the ocean, he attempted what no one in London dared to do: reverse the royal machine before it was too late. What began as a whisper of danger quickly escalated into a full-blown operation. Once Harry learned the extent of Eugenie's vulnerability, he acted immediately. There was no waiting, no protocol, only instinct and urgency. His first move was tactical. He brought in private intelligence advisors, contacts he had trusted since his days in active service, men and women trained to assess high-risk threats. Their findings were chilling. Eugenie's movements had indeed been shadowed. Her lack of official protection left gaping holes in her daily routines. The threat wasn't hypothetical, it was real, and the silence from Buckingham Palace made it even more ominous. Harry didn't stop there. Determined to circumvent the monarchy's machinery, he offered to fund Eugenie's private security discreetly. The proposal was direct, generous, and urgent, but it hit an impenetrable wall. The palace, through veiled channels, rejected the request, citing conflict of optics and undermining of institutional consistency. In other words, it didn't look good for a royal exile to be rescuing one still under the crown's banner. Every door Harry knocked on slammed shut in his face. Even his attempts to communicate through official intermediaries were brushed off or delayed. The walls weren't just up, they were electrified. Inside Montecito, Meghan urged caution. She knew the danger of crossing lines the firm had drawn in blood. Retaliation could be swift, merciless and wide-reaching. Still, Harry pressed on. He knew Eugenie wouldn't ask for help. But she didn't have to. He could feel her fear from thousands of miles away. Desperate for clarity, Harry placed a direct call to his father. What was meant to be a conversation turned into a standoff. The call, which lasted just under 4 minutes, ended without conclusion. No promises, no reassurances, no action. Only vague deflections and diplomatic evasions. Harry hung up more furious and more powerless than ever before. What followed was unthinkable. Harry, once the palace's golden boy, issued an internal legal threat through his council, citing gross negligence. He referenced protocols, past incidents, and the legal liability of knowingly exposing a member of the royal family to credible threat. The letter was sent not to challenge the monarchy but to warn it. Still, the only response he received was silence. And in the middle of that silence, a private text made its way to Eugenie's encrypted inbox. It was only 6 words long, but it said everything. I tried. I'm sorry, stay alert. Those words confirmed what Eugenie already suspected, that despite all efforts, no one in power was going to protect her. Not the palace, not the system. Only the cousin who had once been cast out now stood at her side, even from across an ocean. But behind the heartbreak lay something even more devastating, a secret file, hidden in a safe, that could explain why Eugenie became a target in the first place. A confidential dossier, marked Red Tier Internal, was never meant to be seen by public eyes. But according to a palace insider turned whistleblower, this document was the nail in the coffin of Eugenie's royal security. What it revealed would shake the monarchy's foundations. Buried deep within the palace's internal intelligence system, hidden from even senior staff, the document surfaced like a ghost from behind a locked D, or its existence known only to a select few. It wasn't part of the usual royal correspondence. It didn't bear the stamp of ceremony. This was something else entirely. Labeled Red Tier Internal Privileged Eyes Only, the file painted a devastating portrait of a royal who had, in their view, drifted too close to the line of no return. At the center of it all, Princess Eugenie. Her name appeared no less than 37 times, and the tone, chillingly clinical, strategic, cold, every word constructed with a precision designed to erase doubt, crush dissent, and justify a decision that had already been made behind closed doors. The file alleged that Eugenie's communications with Montecito had been monitored over an extended period longer than anyone expected. Not intercepted in the traditional sense, but watched, flagged, logged. Her messages with Prince Harry, routine as they may have seemed, were reframed as high-contact transnational discourse. Harmless check-ins were twisted into political liabilities. Worse, the document accused her without concrete evidence of leaking tone-altering insights to non-UK media outlets. The claim was vague and the source unverified, but it didn't matter. Perception, in this world, was currency. Sections stood out in bold red lettering, projected realignment risk. It was a forecast, a threat assessment of her likelihood to fully align with Harry and Meghan's narrative. The dossier painted a hypothetical scenario in which Eugenie publicly sided with the Montecito pair during a future institutional fracture. The report didn't allege that she had done this, but that she could. And for the royal machine, could was all it needed. Perhaps the most damning inclusion was a financial footnote, a small, unexplained donation to a sustainability project co-founded by Eugenie. The donor? A known supporter of Meghan Markle based in California. Though unconfirmed and likely coincidental, the link was enough to trigger alarm bells. The donation was labelled concerning proximity, and Eugenie's neutrality was called into question. As if her compassion could now be weaponized, as if kindness itself had become a liability. The final recommendation, chilling in its brevity, read, "Downgrade with extreme discretion. Minimize public fallout." It was signed by a senior aide whose loyalties have long been tied to Queen Camilla's faction, an individual who has quietly orchestrated more than one behind-the-scenes maneuver in recent years. With that signature, the dossier became the justification, the shield that would protect the palace, not Eugenie. And so, without fanfare, without confrontation, the decision was set in stone. The royal family had officially turned one of its own into a calculated risk. A woman born into tradition was now being marked by the very system she had never betrayed, not publicly, not even privately. Her only crime, choosing compassion over compliance. But while palace walls whispered strategy, one voice shattered the silence and brought the entire charade into daylight. It was just a brief video, raw, unscripted, and visibly shaken. Prince Harry looked directly into the lens and confirmed what the royal family never intended to admit. His words. "They've left her exposed." In that moment, the royal curtain was torn apart, and Eugenie's fate became a global headline. There was no press release, no coordinated statement, no carefully managed media rollout, just one clip recorded late at night in what appeared to be a moment of absolute frustration. It wasn't polished, it wasn't filtered, and that's what made it undeniable. Harry didn't speak as a prince. He spoke as a man who had watched the system he once called home devour someone he cared about. The video was uploaded privately to a locked, unlisted channel, but within minutes it was everywhere. Screenshots hit Twitter. Clips circulated through encrypted networks. Then came the mainstream outlets. The floodgates opened, and the world saw what the palace had tried so hard to contain. But Harry didn't hold back. He named names, cited meetings, recounted timelines. Senior figures inside the palace were directly called out. People who had hidden behind protocol now found themselves thrust into the spotlight. He accused them not of negligence but of intent, of punishing Eugenie, not because she broke rules but because she stood by him when no one else would. He called it retaliation disguised as reform. A chilling phrase that struck deep, even among those who still held sympathy for the institution. His voice cracked as he uttered the most damning line of all. "If anything happens to her, the blame will sit squarely with the ones who made this decision, and they know who they are." The reaction was instant and volcanic. Hashtags exploded across platforms, #ProtectEugenie, #RoyalRetaliation, #HarrySpeaks. Journalists scrambled to verify the claims, but the public didn't wait. Opinion pieces ignited across the Atlantic, demanding answers. Former palace aides refused to comment. Media outlets speculated on the silence from Buckingham Palace, some calling it strategic, others labeling it cowardice. But behind that silence, the walls were shaking. For the first time in recent history, a senior royal had gone fully off script, and in doing so, shattered the illusion that all was well behind the gilded gates. What made it worse for the crown was that the world listened. This wasn't tabloid gossip. This was a direct call from one royal to the global stage, challenging the very institution that raised him. International outlets picked it up. American late-night hosts quoted it. Influencers dissected every frame. And still the palace said nothing. Their silence, once seen as strength, now felt like surrender. A confirmation, through omission, that everything Harry said might just be true. But while the public stood in outrage, Eugenie herself was already preparing for the next move. It would defy every expectation of royal behavior. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't lash out. Instead, Eugenie quietly removed herself from the royal roster of public engagements and cancelled all UK-based appearances indefinitely. To those watching closely, it was clear. This was not a retreat. It was a warning. The palace calendar had long listed her presence for a charity unveiling at Kensington, an event tied to one of her most cherished causes. But without public explanation, her name was erased. No apology, no postponement, just a sudden absence where a princess once stood. Those closest to the situation knew this was not a matter of scheduling. This was a message, delivered without words, but echoing with unmistakable finality. Eugenie was stepping back, not out of shame, but to take control. And behind that silence, plans were already in motion. Jack Brooksbank, her husband and quiet protector in recent weeks, initiated a full private security review for their family. Discreet meetings were held, private firms consulted, travel routes assessed. Their son's safety was moved to the top of every briefing. The message was clear: if the palace wouldn't defend them, they'd do it themselves. A statement soon followed. Short, sharp, and unflinching: my family's safety is not negotiable. No palace seal, no royal watermark, just her name. And yet, it hit harder than any royal decree. Whispers quickly spread across both royal and media circles. Some sources claimed Eugenie had begun exploring a quiet relocation to Portugal, a country where discretion is currency. Others said Los Angeles, citing Meghan's encouragement and Harry's insistence that they could create a protective environment there. Nothing confirmed, but enough to unsettle the palace's fragile narrative. Because if Eugenie left the UK entirely, it wouldn't just be a move, it would be an exodus. A second royal daughter choosing freedom over the firm. What worried insiders even more was the digital silence turned signal. Without any public fanfare, Eugenie unfollowed several official royal institution accounts. Then, a few days later, followed Harry's Invictus Foundation. The gesture may have seemed small, but in the world of royal optics, it was seismic. It meant alignment, it meant defiance, and it meant she was done pretending. Behind the scenes, the gap between Eugenie and her royal cousins had begun to stretch wider. Once considered the neutral, unshakable thread between feuding factions, she had now become untethered. Her loyalties were no longer ambiguous. They were quiet, firm, and deliberate. In her restraint, she had become more threatening than any tabloid scandal or headline feud. Yet, even in her silence, the palace fears one final move, a move that could ignite a storm far greater than any withdrawal or confession. Behind closed doors, a hush-hush deal is reportedly underway between Princess Eugenie and an international publisher known for controversial royal exposé. If confirmed, this memoir could rewrite everything: family alliances, betrayals, and the truth about why security was just the beginning. The whispers began with a single phone call: an executive from a high-profile publishing house known for handling stories that rattle institutions and topple carefully curated facades. What started as quiet curiosity turned into a flurry of speculation when Eugenie's name was floated in a closed publishing conference under the codename Project Unseen. Insiders claim the deal is more than a proposal, it's nearing finalization, with a seven-figure advance already being discussed. And this isn't the typical royal fluff piece. This is personal, raw, and potentially catastrophic. Sources close to the negotiations suggest the manuscript focuses on three themes: loyalty, loss, and legacy. But it's what sits between the lines that has the monarchy on edge. Eugenie, once considered a peripheral figure in royal drama, is now poised to become the most dangerous narrator in the royal story because she was there. She saw what others denied. And unlike the firm's usual opponents, Eugenie still has her dignity, her credibility, and until now, her silence. That silence may be breaking. One editor familiar with the draft claims that entire chapters are devoted to her private communications with Prince Harry and Meghan, conversations that reveal the internal chaos following Megxit, the private grief after public betrayals, and the terrifying loneliness of standing in the middle of two warring royal worlds. These aren't leaks, they're lived experiences, and that alone could change how history remembers this era. Legal teams within the palace are reportedly on high alert, bracing for potential breaches of confidentiality agreements and scrambling to establish what, if anything, can be legally challenged. But the truth is, Eugenie may hold more power outside the palace than she ever did within it. One source claimed Queen Camilla erupted in fury upon hearing about the rumoured deal. Her words allegedly echoed down the private wing of Clarence House: if she speaks, it's over. Because Camilla understands one thing very clearly: Eugenie's voice has never been used for vengeance. It's been restrained, principled. If that changes, if the restraint ends, the damage could be irreversible. The memoir's working title, Unseen, a haunting choice for a woman who has been present through everything, yet always kept just outside the line of fire. Until now, The manuscript, if released, won't just fill in the blanks. It will force the world to re-examine the blank spaces themselves. It will question why certain royals were protected while others were punished, why silence was demanded, and who enforced it. And ultimately, it will expose that this saga was never really about protocol or duty, but about fear. The fear of what might happen if the wrong person finally told the truth. As the monarchy scrambles to contain the fallout, one thing is clear: this was never just about security. It was about control, silence, and the dangerous price of choosing sides. And Eugenie, she just chose hers. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.